Welcome back to the Village Clock Shop. I'm James. Today's project is a little different. This is the crutch and the arbor from an American regulator clock. This is called the Anchor, and it came off of here. It was soldered on, and I melted it down and took the solder off. And the problem here is that these pallets, and the pallets are what go, let me get a pointer, see how close I can get. The pallets are what go in here, and that's what the escape wheel touches. They got one, this is the entrance pallet, is that right? No, this is the entrance pallet, that's the exit pallet. And here they are. If you could, let me give you a size here, comparison. Get my hand out of the way. You can see how small they are. Those are agate, and they're no longer available. We could have them made. I don't have the facilities to make them. We could have them made, but it would be quite expensive. It's a fairly involved process. So instead of doing that, we're going to make them out of steel, which is perfectly permissible. If you, this is A2 air hardening steel, and I've already cut a piece out of it. This piece came out of there. Now it came out of there, like that. And now we could mill this, but I'm going to grind it. We're going to grind this down on the surface grinder until it's a perfect fit in here. Okay? In here. And then we're going to put the entrance and exit angle on it, which in these clocks is 35 degrees. And so in order to do that, in order to get started, we need to put this in here so that we can put it on the surface grinder. But in order to get it perfectly like we want it, we have to have a parallel. In order to do that, we have to have a parallel. So we cut out this little piece of galvanized, about 22 gauge. We put our original piece in that we're going to do on the bottom. Put this in there so that it's just barely sticking out like that. There we go. So because we're using our original piece down here for a shim to raise this up, and the shim's too wide, so we're going to put this piece of brass in here like that. I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. Okay, you see where we are there? This is sticking up quite a bit. So now we want to put this in the surface grinder and grind this absolutely parallel to the bottom side. And then we can use it as we proposed. We're on the grinder and we're ready to see how far off we are here. Down 2,000. down a couple more. We want to move the piece over on the wheel so we don't just make a groove in the wheel. Once more. Should be good. Okay, back to the bench. So now we have this ground, and these I can't see a thing in there. These two edges, this edge and this edge, are perfectly parallel. So we're going to take this, put it in here. Well, we didn't grind enough. We got to take some more off. Okay, I took some more off, and we're back to the bench. And we've got our piece in there now. This is our parallel that we made. This is the piece that we're going to grind down to fit the anchor. And now we've got just enough of that above the top here that we can, that should be just fine. So we'll go back to the, I want to make sure this is seated well before we tighten it down. So we'll go back to the surface grinder now and grind this down to the right width. Okay, here we go. Raising the wheel quite a bit because you don't want to take off more than 5,000 at a time. Still not hitting the left hand into that. I keep moving the thing forward so it's not in the same, the wheel's not cutting in the same place all the time. There we go a little bit. Too much. Too much. So I say it can only take off a little bite. Move the wheel again. I've got to measure. And we got quite a ways to go, but the width of the slot in the anchor is 0.081, and this is right now 0.134. So we've got a ways to go. I take smaller bites though. We're down to our last pass or two here. We're only taking 2/1000ths off here. .084, absolutely perfect. So we're back to the bench. That's where we are now. Got some serious burrs on it, and it's fairly hot, so we'll let it cool off a little while. We got the burrs off, and you can see here we are. You can see that this is a really good press fit right in there. Like that. So we're going to we'll use this end. So we need to cut off two little short pieces, just as long as that groove on this end, and then we need to grind the angle. The next thing we want to do is grind this angle at a 35 degrees. There's a couple ways to doing that, but we're going to do it the easy way. We're going to get this adjustable sign block and a couple of our mini pad holders there. The hard way to do this, to set this up, is with gauge blocks, and you have to figure the trig. You figure this angle and do your trigonomics and figure out what how many blocks it takes to do this side here to get a perfect 35 degrees up here. The easier way, I'm not that hot at trig, I've forgotten most of it, is to take a 30 degree angle block and a 5 degree angle block and a parallel. Put the parallel in here, put the 30 in, put the 5 in, like that, with both the small ends together. And put it in like that. Whoop. And it wants to slide down. Sorry about that. You put your 30 and your 5, which is 35, and you adjust the angle here by loosening that screw, or bolt rather, and you've got an exact 35 degrees. Tighten that up, and that saves you the problem of doing all the trig, which I'm not that good at anyway. So now we've got our 35 degrees. This is a set of angle blocks. I think they're Chinese or Taiwanese, but they're good enough for general work. I wouldn't want to do inspection work with them, but they're okay. So now we're set up, and we're going to take our tip here and put it in like that. Screw that down. This is your first one. You tighten this down almost tight, not dead tight, but almost. And then this one, you can tighten that like that, and that raises this in, pushes that in down really tight. So you got a good hold on it there. As long as we're gonna clear. So now we'll put this on the surface grinder, and we'll grind that tip right there to exactly 35 degrees. Then we'll cut it off. You never want to cut this off first, because you got nothing to hold on to. It's whenever you're working with a small piece, a small part of something like this, always leave yourself a handle, a tail on here that you can hold and tighten down and so forth. If you cut that off, I don't know what you'd do. It'd be hard cheese, as they say. So okay, we'll go over to the grinder. Okay, we're ready to grind. First we'll run this down and get it close. We haven't touched off yet. I took the diamond and resurfaced the wheel. Sorry, we got another tool in the way I had to move there. I'm taking this down 5 at a time. Pretty close. There's one. Now you see that the tip of that turned red? I took off a little too much. But we're going to harden we're going to harden this anyway. So we'll take another 2. $1,000 is just about right when you get to this point. There we are. That's a perfect 45, or excuse me, 35. And we're still going to lap this anyway. That's not the finish cut on that. So now we'll leave this setup. We're going to cut this off and do another one. I almost forgot what I just said, is that always leave a handle on here. We need to lap this, and the best way to do that is on a piece of glass. This is 3/8 thick plate glass, which gives you a nice flat surface, and this is 600 paper. And you can do this by hand, but you don't want to, see if I can turn around there. You got to be real careful, and you're going to go very slowly. I usually rest my knuckle on the paper, and I just spit on it. That's how I wet it. And if you're careful and view it from the side and keep that flat all the way across the surface of the tip, you get a very nice, that's good enough for a lap right there. I will do a little more. There's a few little grinding marks still in it. If this thing was bigger or longer, this piece that we're working on, and I needed to do more, I would cut myself a piece of metal, probably aluminum, on the bandsaw at a 35 and use that underneath here to make sure this wasn't this way. But this is so small and we don't have to do it very much anyway. You see we're taking off metal because you can see the metal coming off in the water. Yep. Can't get there it is right there. So that's done. That one's done. I'll go make another one and then we'll come back. Okay, we've got them lapped and cut off. And there they are. There you go. Get some idea how small they are. Now we have to harden them. And let me go get some stainless steel. Okay, we got it ready to harden these. And this is a piece of stainless steel foil, which is actually, well, that's not right. Hold a minute. Come on. That's interesting. It won't zero. Well, we'll try something else. This is 2/1000 thick. You can read that. 2/1000. And there's several ways to do this. One is you can wrap it in wire and rub soap over the wire. I like this stainless myself. It's just cleaner and easier to me. So we're going to put them in there. And then we're going to wrap them up. As best we can. The whole purpose of this, by the way, watch this stainless steel because it will cut you real quick. And the whole purpose of this, what we're doing here, is to keep the oxygen away from the metal when we're heating it. There we go. Let me see. I'm going to bring the pad over here instead of that way I don't have to move the camera. This is my soldering pad from the soldering station. Now we'll get a torch, and I was going to show you this. This is a wonderful, this is probably the Bible for heat treating. Heat treating selections and application of tool steels. You can get it from Amazon. It's put out by Modern Machine Shop. And on the back, let's see if I can adjust the light. On the back is this chart that gives you the different colors of the steel when you're heating it up in relation to the temperature that you're at. And it's really handy because I'm building a heat treating oven and an annealing oven, but I'm sort of in the middle of it and it's not done yet. So this is the way I've always done it in the past, and it's not dead accurate, but it's pretty close. So that's a really good book. It's by William E. Bryson. Okay, let me get the torch. If you remember, this is A2 air hardening steel, so we're not going to quench it. We're just going to heat it up. Which is going to happen pretty darn fast because this is so thin and so small. You want to give it a little soak time at the temperature. If this was a heat treating oven, you'd bring it up to temperature and let it soak for a while. At least 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Better. That's good. Now we're going to let it air dry. So, or air dry, sorry, air cool, and we'll be back in a few minutes when it cools off. It's cooled. If this was a tool or something like that, now that we've got it hard to where we want it, it's probably Rockwell 58, 59, right around in there. And still be sharp. This is very sharp, this stainless steel foil, so be careful. But we don't want it annealed. We want it as hard as we can get it so that it doesn't wear. I'm going to turn it around that way. There they are. You can see how small they are. Now, in the old days, they would have used shellac to put these in the anchor. This is shellac. There's a piece of it right there. It's real shellac. It's just really flaky shellac, and it acts like a glue. We don't use it much anymore. Frankly, we use epoxy because it's, or Loctite. In this case, we're going to use epoxy, 5-minute epoxy. But that's a little messy. The shellac is messy to use, and you have to do it just right. If it gets black and bubbles, it's ruined. So heating it is pretty tricky. So let me get these set up to get in, and we'll mix up some epoxy. We're using DevCon 5-minute epoxy. I'm sure you're familiar with that. Buy it at any hardware store. That's 5-minute work time and 8 to 10 minutes setup. It's hard in 10 minutes. It's pretty useful. I forgot that was a press fit in there, so it's going in a little hard. There it goes. I have you've probably noticed, I have what are called essential tremors, or familiar tremors, which is not a terrible serious thing. It's what you get when you're old, and a lot of guys have it. I don't know about women, whether women have it or not, but a lot of men have it, which makes my work a little hard at times, but we struggle through. You know what? That's too long, which means we put it in the wrong one. I should have marked them. Okay, that looks pretty good. There's that in, there's that in. It's okay if they're oh, that one needs to be moved. It's okay if there's a little epoxy slopped around, because we can clean that off real easy. We just want plenty of it on there to make sure that it holds. Okay. We'll press that when it hardens. Maybe tomorrow, actually. It's getting late now, so we'll let that harden overnight and be good and hard. And tomorrow we'll put it back on the arbor right here. We got this all cleaned up and assembled. There you can see the yeah, there it is. I said I used epoxy to put those in, and then I polished them again just to make real sure. And this is just a press fit on here. This is actually still loose. Right, this is still loose here, and we're going to leave it loose until we find out for sure exactly where it's when the clock's in beat. That's a term that we use a lot in beat, and that means that the tick and the tock of the clock is exactly the same. The time lapse between the tick and the tock is exactly the same. That's called in beat, and if the clock is not in beat, it'll run for a little while, but then it'll probably stop after 5 minutes, 6, 8 minutes. So that's the end of this this project. We'll get this shipped out tomorrow. Tomorrow's Tuesday, and I think the next one of the comments on the channel was that I very briefly showed the pantograph machine, and I can't remember his name now, but somebody asked if I would do a whole video on how you X out wheels or cross out wheels with the pantograph machine, and so that will be our next one, hopefully by the end of the week. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please subscribe and share with your friends, and please comment. I love the comments. I try to answer everyone. So bye for now. Thank you.